The reasons of beginning the war in Ukraine is the issue in which Russia lies the most. We have been at war with Moscow for almost 1,000 years. 1,000. Moscovian people attacked our lands every century, literally every century. One of the main episodes recorded in the chronicles was in 1169, when Andrei Bogolyubsky won the battle and destroyed Kiev. Then he proclaimed himself the Grand Duke of Suzdal Vladimir and stopped recognizing the supremacy of the Grand Duke of Kiev. That's when it all started. And it's very funny to hear when people say that the war in Ukraine started because of expansion of NATO or because of some USA interests. NATO did not exist in the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th centuries. And in each of these centuries, Moscovia attacked Ukrainian lands. And the United States of America were founded much later, after the permanent wars between our nations began. Many people don't know this, don't know that the war between our nations started at the beginning of the last millennium. Moscovian tribes were subject to Kievan Rus. They were ruled by sons and grandsons of Kievan princes. Our ancestors brought civilization to their land, and then they started to separate from us. After they were captured during the Mongol invasion and become vassals of the Golden Horde, and century after century they attacked our lands, tried to occupy the entire territory of today's Ukraine. Our war now is just another war of the new century. Today's war for us is not only a question of territories, it's a question of freedom first of all. And for Russians, it's also not just war for territories. For them, it's war for establishment and empire, for legitimizing the idea of empire in 21st century, the idea of supremacy and domination. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you like content, support this channel, it will be nice for me. Info in bio. What about Donbass? After the collapse of Kievan Rus, Donbass and Zaporizhia region have been the epicenter of Ukrainian culture and military tradition for many centuries. Donbass was the territory of Cossacks, and there were many sieges. Siege is military formation that defend Ukraine from various invaders, and many of these formations were in Donbass. On June 15, 1775, by order of Catherine II, Russian troops treacherously destroyed Zaporizhia siege. It was the final violent liquidation of Ukrainian Cossack formation. This left Ukraine without well-organized, able to protect statehood, our own armed forces, and autonomy was eliminated. When Russia did this, NATO didn't expand too much, But even then, the population of Donbass has still been Ukrainian and spoke Ukrainian language, despite hundreds of Russians' prohibition orders. Until Stalin began forcibly deportation Ukrainians into exile in Siberia, and he began resettle Moscovian people from distant regions of Russia into houses of repressed and murdered Ukrainians, mostly in Donbass. And now the residents of Donbass, whose ancestors managed to survive under Stalin's repressions, fighting in the armed forces of Ukraine, and accordingly the Russians, resettled by Stalin, support Russia. Stalin's strategy works great even after his death. I often work in the same dugout with several drone pilots who are natives of Donbass, and they joined to the Ukrainian army in the first days of full-scale war. Also, we have many soldiers from Zaporizhia, Kherson, Crimea, and other regions of Ukraine, some of which currently occupied. And many of these people fights with Russians since 2014. About language. There are many dialects of Ukrainian language in Ukraine. Some are very different, but we have never had any problems with this. Problems always arose with Moscovian people resettled by Stalin. Ukraine was forcibly annexed to the Soviet Union by Bolsheviks. Like many other countries, it was the Red Terror. Ukraine then desperately fought for its independence against the Bolsheviks from 1917 to 1921, but unfortunately did not have enough weapons and resources to win, and then began the 70 years of peace in occupation, full of hellish repressions, executions and famines. In times when we were not in military battles with Russia, they killed many more Ukrainians in concentration camps than in a hot phase of the war. War in Ukraine is war between free country and between concentration camp country. Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Moldova, Ukraine and Poland, the European part of the lands that came out of Moscow's occupation and which Russians will try to bring back under their control. After restoring the Russian Empire within the borders of Soviet Union, Moscow continued to wage wars with countries of Western Europe. Thank you for support this channel and me, and if you like content, if you want more videos, you can support it with PayPal, info in bio, and subscribe of course.